Hi, you're with Julian on the brand note and clearing up some of the bigger films I saw before Christmas where I got sidetracked and never even reviewed them. Only a couple to clear out of the way. Red Notice in this one. Venom 2 Electric Boogaloo. The sequel to a film defined by the winning combination in the first instance of Michelle Williams and Tom Hardy. Two actors I've got an enormous amount of time for. In a really bad movie. One that virtually didn't work on any level and was kind of weird. Well, they've returned to remake the first film. Pretty much very close to that. So the oddity of Venom is that it's not one entity that's a superhero. It's a symbiotic entity. So it found Tom Hardy in the first film. He couldn't live on Earth for blah, 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 unless it lived inside a host, a human being. And there were no compatible, like a liver transplant, there weren't any compatible humans apart from Tom Hardy. So he essentially walks around all day with this, it's a bit creepy, inside of him all of the time. When he's with a woman, does it, what happens then? Has that come up yet? Oh dear. And this thing just sort of pops out, this big black head and big mouth, and it's a violent and potentially malevolent demon, but it's also on the side of the righteous when it was with Tom Hardy. And the second film retreads the first film, and the only positive you could say is that it makes the same mistakes the first film did even worse, if that's a positive. This time around we get Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson is a great actor, but he's also capable of appearing in very hackneyed versions of himself, where he, like Al Pacino sometimes just ends up in a film to do a caricature of himself. He does that here. He becomes the opposing Venom. So we get the good Venom with Tom Hardy, and then we get the bad Venom who's even more powerful with inside Woody Harrelson, who's a death row inmate that Tom Hardy had a connection with as a journalist. Michelle Williams is still his beloved, who is with another guy. Virtually nothing has really moved position-wise. It's like a sitcom, 2-hour, $200 million sitcom where all of the characters are there and everything's virtually the same. So it's a battle between those two. And the Venom character with Woody Harrelson leaves... the Venom character with Tom Hardy leaves him. They have a big fight and he goes off on his own. And Tom Hardy doesn't have the superpowers of Venom anymore because Venom's got all these amazing superpowers. And the Woody Harrelson Venom side of things wants to come and get Tom Hardy and the other Venom. Leading to a climactic battle. Now, this is the first one had its. It was a near guilty pleasure. It was a really bad film, but it was due to the amiable nature of people like Michelle Williams and Tom Hardy. Actually, a fairly amiable, stress-free watch. This film, however, is a lot messier. It seems to take an age getting to the very small story it has. I mean, having the opposing Venom in another body of a criminal, and them having a climactic battle between the two is not much of a story, is it? And it takes an awful long time to get going. It tries to make some sort of headway out of Woody Harrelson and his girlfriend, Naomi Harris, who I've been extremely up and down about. Not always. Was she in the bank robbery one I just reviewed and said that I kind of changed my opinion about her? I think she may have been. Or was that the one from Fast and Furious? The one. Never say that about anyone that isn't completely white, by the way, because that does not come across well. I get those two actresses mixed up. The one that was in the James Bond and the one that was in Fast and Furious. And one of them I thought was actually really good in... the sequel to the zombie bank robbery movie, which I reviewed recently, whatever that was. But she turns up here as Shriek, who is a character also in Uber prison detention, who gives these sonic shrieks off. She's a really bad character here. Her whole shtick isn't interesting. The character's really ill-defined and goes nowhere. Woody Harrelson is just not used. They just ask him to do his sort of trademark Woody Harrelson thing, but not to any extent. Tom Hardy is amiable and charming, and Michelle Williams is... I love both of these actors, and they're both really amiable and charming. But this goes into an absolute toilet bowl of a mess. It really does. It's the denouement is so messy. Probably the worst thing that will stick out about this $200 million film is how atrocious the special effects are. Once you've seen that Venom thing come out with its big mouth, the rest of it looks really cheesy. Like the CGI looks so bad. It's so gaudy. And it looks like sort of these really ungainly blobs coming out of this creature. Out of Woody Harrelson or Tom Hardy. It looks terrible. So I don't know what they spent the money on. This film was directed by a god. This film was directed by Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis is a god. He is the reigning all-time champion of CGI performances after some fairly noticeable ones. Gollum, King Kong, Caesar in the Planet of the Apes. But he's also really good in acting. He was one of the only good actors in Black Panther. And he was excellent in 24-Hour Party People. He's great. And he directs this, but he does such a bad job. And I don't know how, because everything else he's done, he's touched has turned to gold. So that was a really big disappointment. Stephen Graham is another great actor. You can tell how bad this film is by the fact that it's got people like Stephen Graham, Tom Hardy, Michelle Williams, Woody Harrelson, who have all been fantastic in multiple projects and are all pretty bad here, or just not used at all. And Stephen Graham isn't. The periphery boyfriend character shows up again. But even it's like it's got a third of a film at the start, and then it just sort of coders. The denouement is incredibly messy and frustrating. It's just such a hard thing to look at. It's all over the shop. But seeing something as simplistic as this, there's no, like the backstory in the first one and the whole sort of military-industrial complex angle in the first one was twice as complicated as the story we're given here. There's just nothing to it. So one of the worst superhero films. So I'm going to give Venom 2 for the odd 10 minutes here and there where you get people like Michelle Williams and Tom Hardy not being involved in the superhero side of things. I'll give it a 3.5 out of 10 for Venom 2.